Welcome to the 2021 Empowering Truth Benefit, celebrating Kartemquin's past, present, and future as Chicago's documentary powerhouse. My name is Sylvia Ewing, and I'm the interim board chair of Kartemquin. I have the distinct pleasure of being your host this evening, and what a wonderful evening it's going to be. It's been an unprecedented year for our organization, for our country, and the world. What a privilege to have had time to reflect, to reset, and to renew, and to come before you now, ready for the next 55 years. Let's kick off the night by presenting the trailer for one of our newest films, The Ants and the Grasshopper.
Nina shawanangwa ichi. Nguvasambizi abanyane. Nikupangire po movili munhu wakutoka kwa uvili ngeko. Mwana kazi dangu lake ni isitiri wa uvili wa iwe. Malo ya mawilo ya vula, nyingo inyake pachaka iko waka 3. Ndikuti chili chose chayomira. SFHC akatiphalira kuti ni climate change. Chifukwa cha ukhaliro wa banyitu wakuwalo nge ku America. Badango litu balati kukumba kuti vindu visinti tikumuyendera munthu kuchikaya kwake na kukadumbisana naye. Kabomezga yayi ngaba ngenkulota.
God said you can increase like sand, but he never said spoil the atmosphere.
I don't see it as an issue. That's my problem.
How are you seeing the climate affecting your family?
We see it more as a political agenda.
It would take a global catastrophe to do a complete 180.
Ngani ya unenesko ikuchedwa kwenda. Kweni ya utesi kuchitavichi kwenda Ruiru. Kweni ise chigomezo utili nacho. Bali nyerere zinandi. Kweni nyerere tuchoko tukunyamula panana.
In early 2021, Kartemquin staff and board embarked upon a period of reflection to shape a new forward-looking plan for the organization. For us, this means elevating a diverse set of voices, contributing to the ongoing dialogue around storytelling and filmmaking, and centering themes of authorship, ethics, and the evolution of the documentary industry. It is our hope that tonight's event presents a glimpse of our path forward together. In the coming weeks, we are looking forward to announcing a dynamic new executive director who will lead us as we enter into this new chapter. Before we kick things off, there are a few people we must thank. Tonight would not be possible without the generosity of so many. I'd like to express deep gratitude to all of our sponsors, and especially our sustaining sponsor and former board chair, Jason Stevens, and our supporting sponsors, Wintrust, Nat Geo, Susan E. Morrison, and Fork Films. I'd also like to thank our media sponsors for helping us to get the word out about this event, as well as our honorary co-chair, Tony Preckwinkle, Cook County Board President. We greatly appreciate your support. Finally, I would like to thank the staff and board of Kartemquin, as well as this evening's host committee, for all of their work to make tonight possible. Please join me tonight in supporting Kartemquin's work and our commitment to social justice, creative excellence, and racial equity by making a donation at givebutter.com/Kartemquin Films, which you can see on your screen. I'm also excited to share that tonight, Thanks to an incredibly generous matching grant from the Riva and David Logan Foundation, contributions made by new supporters, as well as those giving at a higher level, will be matched dollar for dollar. So your gift's impact will be doubled. Please give what you can. Your support is critical to helping Kartemquin's filmmakers create impactful documentary films that foster a more engaged and just society. A cultural shift is taking place across the country as the inequities and structural barriers caused by racism are laid bare after having long simmered underneath the surface. In this moment, there is a new willingness to listen and learn. Please join me in watching director Steve James as he sits down with the next generation of Kartemquin filmmakers to discuss their creative processes, the importance and the true meaning of collaboration, and the future of the industry as they see it.
Hi, I'm Steve James, longtime associate with Kartemquin Films, and I have the pleasure of moderating a panel today with a terrific group of filmmakers who are affiliated with Kartemquin. And so before we dive in, love for each of you to just quickly introduce yourselves and your affiliation with Kartemquin.
I'm Ruben Daniels. I'm an editor. I was an intern at Kartemquin, and then from there I started working with Steve James on America to Me and then City So Real, and been editing ever since.
Hi, I'm Bing Liu. I was part of the 2014 Diverse Voices Documentary Fellowship and worked with Steve, Kevin, and Ruben on America to Me. And Steve was gracious enough to EP my film Minding the Gap that went through David.
Hello, my name is Ashley O'Shea. I was a 2015 intern at Kartemquin and then began developing my film Unapologetic through the Diverse Voices in Docs program, and eventually became a co-production. Worked on it with Ruben, even though he didn't mention it. Yeah, I can see.
My bad.
I just had to jab you real quick. But yeah, director producer Unapologetic, which went through many programs before landing at co-production.
I know he's proud of the work you did on it. I can speak firsthand.
I'm just messing with him.
Thank you. Definitely.
I'm Kevin Shaw. I was a 2018 Divid Fellow with my project Let the Little Light Shine. First worked with Kartemquin on America to Me with Steve and Bing and Ruben, and have also worked on City So Real with Steve as well.
My name is Jenny Shi. I was a Diverse Voices in Documentary Program Fellow in 2018 with my film Funny Ying Ying, and I continued working with Kartemquin on my film, and it eventually became a Kartemquin co-production.
My name is Rebecca Torres, and I was part of the Diverse Voices in Doc program in 2017, and also the Hulu Kartemquin Accelerator program in 2020.
We're in a real moment in our field and across all the arts, really, but we're just here to talk about documentary, I think. What has struck you about this moment as it relates to the work you've either done with Kartemquin or the work that maybe you might be doing with Kartemquin in the future? What stands out for you as significant about that for this organization?
I would just say it's probably it is a moment of reckoning for institutions and organizations to really, I would say, put their money where their mouth is in regards to the idea of challenging and really examining who's telling stories, particularly in communities of color, and whether white filmmakers should be the voice to do that depending on what the story is. And if not, those filmmakers should be thinking about basically kind of ceding power and supporting other filmmakers of color who might be closer to the communities that they're trying to tell the story on, and can have an organic richness that, maybe the white filmmakers are not going to necessarily have in regards to whatever the story is. So, I think this is a real charged moment for people to really come to grips with some of that, some of these issues, and really start to consider who owns the power, who has the power in that dynamic, and when should that power be ceded to other filmmakers, particularly filmmakers of color, and how can they be supported so that they can end up telling these stories that are happening within our communities.
Well, so Ashley, let me ask you, what made you feel equipped to tell the story of Unapologetic that I know that, Ruben was your editor on? What made you feel equipped to tell that story?
That was, I think that was a developing, I think, readiness to tell that story. But I think a big part of it was the fact that I was following two other two other young Black women that were going through this experience of like navigating the movement for Black lives, but they were also going through the experience of, figuring out the direction of their lives. And I was very much so in the same place, like starting this project while I was in the Kartemquin internship program. And so for me, I think it just was a matter of asking a lot of questions, like on all sides of things. I want Unapologetic to feel like a Black woman made it. And I think in addition to that, working with like Ruben and other like emerging Black creatives is really important as well, because there was just so much to the story of the movement and to these heavy issues of policing and brutality, that we almost needed that collective understanding to be able to get to the point of storytelling, like to the depth of storytelling that we wanted to go. And I just feel like if I would have had to navigate that in a majority white space, or even a non-Black space, that it would have taken a lot more time than it did working with other young Black creatives.
Jenny, do you want to jump in on this with your film?
I think in my story, because it's about a family, a Chinese family who knew nothing about US, and they were navigating, the strange country here and also trying to find their missing daughter. So on a personal level, I feel like, there's a certain intimacy in the film. And also as a filmmaker, I really wanted to be careful about like the power dynamic. Even though I'm Chinese, I share the same cultural and history background with the family. I'm still very careful about my interaction with the family. And I think at a certain point, I was asking myself, whether I should continue pursuing this story, because it's so sad. And also I think there are a lot of like ethical questions I need to answer. But on the other hand, I just feel like, the media representation on Chinese in the US and also Chinese American, not enough. And I feel like if I can really, take on this project and to really help a general audience to understand who we are, who a Chinese international student is, that would be really helpful. Because at the end of the day, I don't want people to see this as just a Chinese story. I want people to see it as a story that can be relatable to everyone. It's going to be like a universal story.
Yeah, that's interesting. It makes me think about you being on both America to Me and in Minding the Gap. There are no Asian subjects that you are following. In America to Me, you did not follow Shanti's story. Rebecca did. You followed stories of African Americans, Black people in America to Me, and then of course there's white guys and a very prominent Black subject in Minding the Gap. What made you think you could tell those stories?
With Minding the Gap, I think the biggest lesson, it's interesting. I think the thing with, so Kier is the prominent Black participant in the film, there's a thread about how he feels about being like the one Black skateboarder in this primarily white group. And it was the last thread that I felt like we finally figured out like how to tell. Because for me, I felt like over the years, I was just being very direct about asking him, like, what does it feel like to be, you know, the Black skateboarder in this group? And it always felt a little like stilted. And then over time, it was like almost like he came to this realization that, oh, his dad taught him a bunch of lessons about what it means to grow up Black in America. And, you know, we got a very late pickup interview, like a couple of months before picture locking of all these things, and we're able to fit in the edit, and it made it so much more personal. And I think like had I been a Black filmmaker, you know, perhaps we would have, you know, landed on something like that revelation much sooner. So I don't know. I think like a lot of the lessons I've learned from both those projects is like maybe I'm not equipped to tell these stories.
Well, I appreciate that candor. Although, you know, when I look at a film like Minding the Gap and the work you did on America to Me, I see the ways in which you connected to your subjects that aren't just limited to racially, of course. You know, you were a skateboarder. I imagine there weren't a lot of Asian skateboarders in Rockford. Maybe I'm wrong. So maybe you could relate to something about that feeling like you're a little bit of an outsider in a dominant white culture that could help you connect. And I think sometimes, you know, and this, you know, I'm a white filmmaker who's had a long career telling stories about communities of color. And I've been thinking about that a lot in the last couple of years, and what I should do and what I shouldn't do going forward. But I do think that, well, it raises questions about how deterministic we do want to be going forward on this question of who tells what stories. And that doesn't just extend to white filmmakers, it also extends to filmmakers of color too, in the stories that you tell. What are ways in which the institution and the filmmakers who have been a part of that institution for longer than you guys have, you know, people like of my generation and even younger than me, because, you know, I'm kind of old, but what are ways in which those folks need to step up or participate in this process? Is it just a matter of handing over the reins, as it were, or is there more to be done on the part of the associates and people who have been part of building Kartemquin all these 55 years?
Well, a lot of it is onus on these filmmakers themselves. Like, we can't sit here and provide answers for what they should be doing if they don't want to do the work themselves. It's very much like when we had our reckoning with the George Floyd murder and this talk of finding allies and who's a true ally and who's performative or not, whether that be with institutions or with people. And a lot of times the questions were asked to the Black community. You need to do the work yourself. And if you're doing the work yourself, then that will show me, at least, that your intentions are true and you really do want to kind of bridge this gap and these disconnects that we're talking about.
In terms of my, what I'm sort of focusing on in terms of filmmaking, and like, I would like to see accessibility really for everyone, for people with disabilities and without. But I would like that to become like a value and part of the culture of Kartemquin, of other organizations. And I say that in the sense where, like, it's expected to provide audio descriptions for blind viewers or blind, you know, participants at a film festival or things like that. providing ASL or providing captioning. I would love to see that be the norm rather than an afterthought when people, complete their film and then they're scrambling to figure out, oh, I have to add captions or I have to add audio description. And so having grant makers understand that, having program directors understand that, so that it becomes part of line items on budgets, or part of the budget if you're going to have a film festival too, providing ASL, all of that stuff. And accessible spaces, physical, not just, inclusive spaces, but also physically accessible spaces. And you said we could call out Kartemquin, and I'm going to, because Kartemquin's building is not accessible for wheelchair users. And so for me, being part of the Hulu program, the accelerator program this past year was all virtual, which made it accessible to me. But if it wasn't that way, I would not have been able to get in the building. So I'm calling you out. Sorry. And yeah, and it's something that we're 30 years past. The ADA was passed in 1990, and a lot of times it's still a fight and a struggle just to get these basic things to have access. And I think as filmmakers and the media industry has a lot of power to change that. So we should embrace that.
I think it's going to take a lot of white people, white filmmakers, especially, being uncomfortable. Like, there's a lot of stuff, like, it requires sacrifice at the end of the day. Like, if they come to you with a project to say, this is a project based off of community of color or whatever, and they want you to direct it, are you comfortable with saying, I'm not going to direct this unless I could co-direct it with this person that's part of the community? I did have one quick question for Steve to put you on the hot seat. What is your answer now to people that say, why are you making, films based off people, with people of color, or, based off people of color?
I'm sorry, I'm the moderator. I don't have to answer any questions. No. Well, it's changed the way I think about telling those stories going forward. I don't know, I couldn't do Hoop Dreams the way I did Hoop Dreams again. I couldn't do The Interrupters the way I did The Interrupters again. If I did those kinds of stories at all, it's going to have to be very differently. And I think a lot of times I'm not going to be doing those stories anymore going forward. That if I can help someone else, like filmmakers like you, if I can play a role in helping you guys tell those stories, I think that's what I need to be doing more. Use my, my clout, if you will. It's hard to think of myself as having clout, but use whatever I have to help, other filmmakers who are in a position to better tell those stories, and who need to be able to tell more stories. Great. What a great collection of folks. Thanks so much, you guys, for doing this, for participating in this. It's great to see everybody. Look forward to actually seeing everybody in person again. I wish we could have done this in person. That would have been a lot of fun. But this was fun too.
As you could hear from the conversation, the next wave of Kartemquin filmmakers are dynamic, innovative, and ready to get to work. In fact, I'm so excited to present the trailer from one of them. Unapologetic is a film directed by Ashley O'Shea, whom you just heard talk about power and trust in documentary. Unapologetic will receive its national broadcast debut on December 27th on PBS.
This is the part of Chicago that doesn't get talked about. Yes. Yeah, my mom was in the federal penitentiary when she took that picture. Styling on them. I have a whole family here who I know needs protecting in a way that they've never been protected.
I'm a doctoral student organizing towards Black freedom.
I really want my research grounded in how we can envision what safety looks like outside of law enforcement.
There's been a major development in the police shooting of 22-year-old African-American woman Rakia Boyd.
I'm committed to confronting this board, city council, and the mayor until y'all fire Dante Surface.
Black women do a lot of thankless and undervalued work.
We taking back our community. We taking back our community.
Our entire existence is resistance.
It's just like an exacerbated level of commitment.
It's very new, this idea of this being work. This has always been life.
This is Black history that we are making. Even if we don't, our stories gonna make it.
Next up, we will check in with Kartemquin founder and artistic director, Gordon Quinn, and Community Film Workshop's founder and executive director, Margaret Caples. Between the two of them, they have about 100 years of experience in the industry. Truly two pillars of documentary in Chicago. Moderating their conversation is an up-and-coming producer, publisher, and journalist, Morgan Elise Johnson. Let's see what Gordon and Margaret can share about how the industry has changed and where we go from here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Elise Johnson. I am an independent filmmaker based in Chicago, and I'm also the publisher of The Tribe, which is a digital publication and production company that is dedicated to reshaping the narrative of Black Chicago. I'm also a part of the Kartemquin family. I started my documentary career as an intern at Kartemquin some years ago. I've worked directly with Gordon, and I've also worked in documentary film at 371 Productions based in Milwaukee. And my latest film, Unapologetic, just had its theatrical run, and it'll be premiering, having a national broadcast in December for PBS's POV program. So thank you so much for joining us today. And now I just want our panelists to introduce themselves, and let's start with you, Gordon.
I'm Gordon Quinn. I'm the founder and artistic director of Kartemquin. And, you know, I've made films over the years, but really what I spend my time with now is working with younger filmmakers and emerging filmmakers.
I'm Margaret Caples, executive director of the Community Film Workshop of Chicago. We train people in film and digital media. Currently, our best programs where I partnered with Gordon is with Diverse Voices and Docs, and a program that we do at the University of Chicago called the Production Institute, a storytelling project where students produce documentaries.
Since Kartemquin's mission is about supporting democracy and a more just society through documentary filmmaking, do you feel that Kartemquin Films are making an impact in American democracy? And how is your institution taking steps to measure the impact of your films?
You know, impact is a really important question. And I think our field struggles with that. We try to talk about how to measure it and that kind of thing, but we're also talking about works that are crafted that are a work of art. And so, you know, do you measure the impact of art? I think we have to be careful of like kind of quick and dirty solutions. You know, funders and foundations all like impact. I think the gatekeepers, you know, from PBS to Netflix are all concerned about the numbers. And one of the things that I say to young filmmakers is, don't ask me what PBS wants. The question is, how are you going to make these gatekeepers want what needs to be the story that has to be told? How can you make them take what you think is important?
What is the role of institutions in expanding access to the documentary field, the field of filmmaking?
Well, first of all organizations have to think about their mission. What is the mission of your organization? And what is the mission of the films that are being produced by your organization? So they have to be able to be in line with each other. You really have to do that. Secondly, our role, I really can't stress this enough. We can't help a filmmaker if we don't have money. We just can't do it. We can't help them because it takes staff. When you take on a new responsibility, you have to have staff. You can't, and so you have to have money to support it. It's just a fact of life. And you can't provide equipment, good working equipment for people and access for them to edit unless you have a facility to do those things. It's important that we provide those things, but we do have to have financial support. We are going to have a new initiative where we are going to work with young social activists, and we're going to teach them storytelling and how to use a digital camera to do that. So that's one way, but it's a small way to be able to broaden the documentary field and broaden the skill base, because you have to have the skills. There have been a lot of documentaries produced and young people have their cameras, but okay, how do you use it as an effective tool? That takes an institution to teach you that. It takes an institution to teach you how to use it as a tool and how to have the skills to do that, and then not to be intimidated about the technology.
Absolutely. Educational programming is so important. It's been important in my own career development. Like I mentioned, I came out of Kartemquin's internship program, which in many ways was possibly even more important than my film school education, working with professionals in the fields and being a part of projects that are in the works is so important for emerging filmmakers, and both of your programs do a great job at that. But I want to bring back that word, Gordon, gatekeepers. I want to add on to that, because when we say change the gatekeepers or like diversify, the office spaces and institutions and things like that, from my point of view, sometimes people reach out to me and they say, hey, can you come over in this space? And we're having a conversation about diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, no, because I'm running my own institution and I don't have time to fix whatever y'all got going on over there. I don't have more time to volunteer or any of that. And so I can say that a lot of times when we look to Black people to be included, we're sometimes creating more work for Black people who are already, we already have enough battles to fight. And sometimes we're saying, hey, y'all created this problem, so we need for you to fix it, Yeah. Last question, what are your hopes for the industry 15, 20 years from now? I'll start with you, Gordon.
My hope is that there's going to be a new group of, multicultural, diverse filmmakers who are still waging these battles in our democracy, because I don't think they're going to go away. It's a dialectical relationship. You're always going to have to struggle around all of the issues we've just been talking about, from resources and power to having an impact and having media actually play that role. I suspect in 15 to 20 years, we're still going to be having those battles about, is media just something in the marketplace to be sold like, like sausage in a shop, or is it something else that needs to be funded in a way that acknowledges the fact that it is a critical piece of the democratic process.
10 to 15 years from now, I hope that Diverse Voices in Docs and the Production Institute filmmakers and all of the filmmakers we're going to make in all of our programs, the collectives that we're going to organize, these filmmakers will take it to another level. They will be there. They will take over our role and develop a new group of documentary filmmakers and develop new platforms, and look at just not the local and national platform, but to look internationally at the issues that we're dealing with and to take your media international, because it's something about when you do that, then America wakes up and says, oh, so we have to not get bogged down in who we take our media to. So that's my hope, that we have a generation that we're working with now who are still doing work, valid, good work, and who are helping to build future filmmakers.
Thank you so much. That's a great note to end on. Again, I'm Morgan Elise Johnson, and we just had a conversation with Gordon Quinn and Margaret Caples. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
That was such an illuminating discussion of the institution's responsibility to uplift and advocate for filmmakers today. Now, here's a film that is garnering a lot of excitement and attention right now. For the Left Hand, directed by Gordon Quinn and Kartemquin's director of editing, Leslie Simmer, follows Norman Malone, a natural at piano, who at 10 was paralyzed on his right side. Undaunted, Malone began a lifelong quest to reclaim his place at the piano, mastering some of the most difficult music ever written for the left hand alone. We are so excited to share that on November 5th and 7th, For the Left Hand will be broadcast on WTTW. Let's watch.
This is a piece that I was meant to play. When I was a little older than you are now, I had an injury. So I had to learn how to play the piano with only one hand.
He never had told anyone what happened to him.
They sent me to a psychologist. He said, "What do you think you can do with just one hand?" It became the force of survival. When I realized how many piano concertos for the left hand have been written, this is the only one that has survived the test of time.
The Ravel Concerto tells a story of great, profound loss and his struggle to overcome that loss. And therefore, it also tells the story of Norman Malone. Ravel is creating the illusion of two hands playing at once.
Well, how about playing it with the West Hartford Symphony Orchestra?
I thought, Holy Mother, how many people get that offer?
To play a concerto with orchestra for the first time is huge.
I'm just frustrating myself.
To do it at age 79 is monumental.
I hope that I brought them what I've learned, that you have to survive.
As Kartemquin emerges from our reflection period, I'd like to share a little bit more about one of our programs that you've heard about in some of tonight's conversations. That's the Diverse Voices in Docs, or DIVID Fellowship. Through DIVID, a cohort of Midwest-based emerging filmmakers receives funding, networking opportunities, and access to industry leaders, plus one-on-one time with Kartemquin staff. This program has some spectacular alumni, including many of tonight's featured participants. Over the past year, our program staff has engaged DIVID alumni to assess the program and revise its structure, moving forward to ensure that we are serving the needs of participating filmmakers. We're so excited for the program to return in 2022 with a reinvigorated commitment to equity and sustainability. Please help us continue to host programs like DIVID by visiting givebutter.org patreon.com/Kartemquin Films and donating now. Thank you for joining us this evening from wherever you are in the world. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We'll put the donation link in the chat, and please donate now to support filmmakers like those you've heard from this evening and a vision of the future that we hope you share. Remember that the impact of any new or increased gifts tonight will be doubled. Thank you so much for your generosity, and thank you again to all of our sponsors and to our host committee who made tonight possible. As we bring this evening to a close, we'd like to share with you a glimpse of some of the films that are currently in development with Kartemquin through the Hulu Kartemquin Accelerator. We can't wait to see what the future holds, and we hope you'll be right there with us. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
This is kind of cool. The way I'm holding this camera, because I don't have any other options of holding it right now.
My name is Damon Lamar Reed. I've been a full-time artist for over 20 years. And one day I was looking over something and I saw a thing about Chicago girls and you know, information on a girl missing. Something just popped in my head that, you know, I could actually use my art to start bringing awareness to this situation. If I did one picture and it helped solve even one case, to me that would all be worth it.
I knew that I was Mexican and Palestinian, but my parents raised me to be this perfect American.
We both came to the United States not because we came here for a better life, but because we were running away from something.
I wanted to return with my parents to find my cultural roots. I'd have to actually face how their trauma affected me.
You don't know how much it hurt me when you would say that you hated me.
They didn't have much of a childhood.
Everybody knew everybody. We would walk to 1 or 2 or 3 stores.
We played on the basketball courts in Princeville.
Longtime friends that I still talk to now. I don't want to live here again.
More than 3 million people have been told to evacuate this storm.
These are people's personal items on the side of the road now, all thanks to Hurricane Matthew.
It's supposed to have been a 100-year flood. It happened again 16 years later.
Querida Frida, llevo años conociéndote. Cumplo 26 años desde mi accidente. Igual que tú, me dañé la columna y quedé discapacitada. He usado silla de ruedas ya la mayor parte de mi vida. ¿Cómo fue tu vida? ¿Tú tenías ayudantes? ¿Quién te hizo esa mesa para pintar desde tu cama? Eso quiero tener yo, una comunidad de artistas que nos apoyemos, en especial una comunidad de artistas con discapacidades.